Started on the panels. Oops. There we go. Good. So first of all, I want to thank our sponsors, KLRU, who host us here every month, and this is the second year. So big hand for KLRU. And be sure to shout out up front. Why KLRU is their hashtag, so why KLRU. So feel free to hashtag why you watch KLRU. Austin's Pizza. Austin's Pizza is our food sponsor this year. Got a bunch of goodies back there too, and I want to thank Austin's Pizza for providing our food for all of our meetings this year. They're awesome. Big Red Soda, we've got both Big Red and Sand Soda back there, and Big Red has been a continuous sponsor of our beverages, so thanks to Big Red, and their Twitter handle is Drink Big Red. Austin's Pizza is just Austin's Pizza. And then a special thanks to our corporate sponsor. AT&T has sponsored us for this full year as a corporate sponsor, so big shout out to AT&T for their support of Social Media Club. And then I also want to thank a couple individuals. Bill, and I'm going to butcher your last name, Bill, I'm sorry. Jack Russo has volunteered and brought cups and ice for us to the meeting, so an individual contribution. Thanks, Bill, appreciate it. And we've got Joseph Holdwin, who is going to live blog for us tonight. And I also want to welcome our Edu Clubs. We've got chapters here, if you're not aware, from UT Austin, St. Edwards, and also Texas State in the area, so college chapters of Social Media Club. So I'd like to have, and our newest one is St. Edwards, and their new president and vice president are here. So if you're in one of our chapters, or if you're a sponsor of one of our Edu chapters, can you stand up so everybody can see you? Real quick. Don't be shy. Awesome. So thank you to the Edu teams and the sponsors especially, because I know they're putting a lot of hard work to help support it. Thank you guys. And we may be reaching out to you guys for speakers for those chapters as well too. Who's here for the first time? Who's never been to a Social Media Club meeting before? We always like to ask that. Okay, handful of folks. Awesome. Well, welcome. We do these typically on the third Tuesday of every month. The one thing I will mention is for March, we're going to do it a little bit differently, and I'm going to invite Alan up here in a minute to talk about it. We're going to be doing our panel next month at the Austin Toros game. And our hashtag for the meeting tonight is SMCA, if you want to include that in your tweets. And if you can get onto the network, we've got the network connection right up there. I'd like to invite a few people up to make some announcements. Forecast, how many of you saw on the invite that Forecast is doing a bar crawl, and they're going to do a giveaway tonight? How many people saw that? Great. So is Caitlin McElhenney here? Great. Why don't you come up and tell me a little bit about them?
Hi guys, I'm with Forecast. We are a local Austin startup. It is also a smartphone app for Android as well as iPhone. It's kind of like Foursquare for the a future check-in. You can do kind of impromptu meetings with Foursquare. You can set with Forecast. Sorry, you can do. You can say where you'll be going in the future. You can say you'll be going to have coffee at, let's say, like Houndstooth Coffee at 3 o'clock today. That way, people can see that you'll be going. People can be able to join at just the tap of the button and say "Me too," and then you can spread it all over your Facebook and your Twitter as well. We are having a pub crawl on Friday the 24th. It starts at 6 at Opal Divines, and it's all along West 6th. If you have Forecast, look me up. I have forecasted the whole shebang. We'll be going to 5 different bars and doing all sorts of fun activities and giveaways at each location during the whole night. So I hope to see you guys out there. For the $50 giveaway for Social Media Club, you were to have forecasted your attendance today to the meeting, and we will be drawing a random winner from that who will receive a $50 voucher towards drinks at any one of the bars that they choose. And if they want to share it, more the merrier. Thanks.
Okay, next up, we want to have Alan, I can butcher your last name too, Schlesinger from Austin Toros and their social media lead. The cheerleaders and the mascot actually had practice tonight, so we didn't get the cheerleaders and mascot, but you will get to see them at March at the panel. But they're going to come up and tell you about this. We're really excited about this. We've been planning with them now for about 4 months. This is going to be a citywide thing. Social media clubs involved. They've got teams. We're going to do our panel before the game. They've got a great lineup. I'll let them tell you about it of speakers for that event. So it'll be March 30th. That'll be in place of our regular meeting next month. And we'll let Alan tell you all about it.
Hope I'm not a disappointment about the dancers and the mascot. Apologize for that. Oscar asked me to be in the suit, but I'm not tall enough. So we're actually, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the Austin Toros, but we're the minor league team for the San Antonio Spurs here in Austin. We play at the Cedar Park Center. On our game at Friday, March 30th, we're going to have a couple of things going on. We're going to have a panel on social media and sports, where we're going to have the interactive content manager for the San Antonio Spurs. Tom over here is the founder of Black Box Social Media, and he'll talk to you in a minute, as well as Matt Halfhill, who's the editor-in-chief of NiceKicks.com, which is one of the largest online shoe retailers in the country, based here in Austin. They actually have a store on Guadalupe down the street. We're also going to have to theme it with March, a social media March Madness tournament, where we're going to have a scavenger hunt with various social media related tasks. And several people actually I recognize in here who I've already met with that are actually forming teams for this event. So we're looking for companies and then teams of 8 to 16 people to be involved in this event. And I left some flyers in the front on the table that talk a little more about the event. The winning team for the event is going to win a private suite to a San Antonio Spurs game, which is a $4,000 value. And the top 4 teams will also get prizes. Tom's going to expand a little more on the event too as well.
Thank you, Alan. There's not a lot. We're going to keep some of the tasks pretty secretive. We don't want people getting head starts. But Alan will be providing you guys with instructions here soon enough. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and have you guys, we're going to give you a link to a website. You guys can go to the website, sign up, put your company information there. You'll get a link, and basically a lot of the competition is going to be with you putting that link in various places and trying to get people to do stuff through using social media. So it should be a lot of fun. If you guys haven't had a chance to come out and see a Toros game yet, you're absolutely going to enjoy it. It's going to be Friday the 30th of March, so definitely grab a flyer, and can't wait to see you guys out there.
And we're really looking forward to that, and we'll have the panel beforehand, so it'll be a really great night. We may arrange some carpooling too, because it's up in Cedar Park, so we'll be looking at that too. Also want to mention, we are not going to be doing our own South by South. We've had several people ask doing a South by Southwest event, but Chris and Christy, who are the founders of Social Media Club, will be in town, and we're in the process of organizing a couple of events that they'll be hosting, so we'll be posting if you want to participate and get together with members from other chapters around the world who'll be in for South by Southwest. And then I had 2 more announcements. I didn't see Brian, but I think I saw Joey. Wanted to mention that Social Media Breakfast have started back up. They had their first information gathering meeting last Thursday. But want to encourage people to, Joey, where are you, so we can at least point you out. Where are you, Joey? He was here. Joey and Brian Cheney are arranging that, and they're just getting it going again. So those are being held at El Chalupa, or La Chalupa, and
Casa Chapala.
Casa Chapala, thank you. Casa Chapala. And I even ate there Friday night, and I don't know. So Casa Chapala, and really happy they've got those back up and running. Those, of course, being breakfast. There's Joey there. I was just giving a plug for Social Media Breakfast. So see Joey if you want to hear more about what they're doing with their new lineup for Social Media Breakfast, and we're really happy to have that back off the ground after about 11 months of not doing them.
What's the handle for that?
What's the handle? SMB Austin, I believe? At SMB Austin. So glad to have our sister organization have morning events for people who are morning people, and then we've got this for people at night, and great cross-pollination between the two. And then finally, I wanted to invite Wesley, Deb, and Veronica, who's actually part of their charity, to come up and talk a little bit about Big Brothers and Big Sisters, who is our charitable organization this year. So you guys come back.
Hello, my name is Wesley Faulkner, and my co-chair here is...
Hi, I'm Deb Robinson.
We're both co-chairs of nonprofit outreach for the Social Media Club Austin chapter, and this semester which is the beginning of January to July, we are sponsoring Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Texas. Every 6 months we rotate nonprofits and help them with their social media strategy and act as social media consultants as a way to giving back to the community here in Austin. With Big Brothers and Big Sisters, we have Veronica Fox, and she's going to tell you a little bit about Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Hi. First, I'd just like to say thank you to Wes and Deb and everybody else for taking us on. You guys are awesome. So our Twitter handle is Big Mentoring. Look at that now. Anyway, so Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Texas serves Travis, Williamson, and Hayes counties. I've actually only been with the organization for about 4 months, so it's great to have their support and help. Because as you might imagine, nonprofits tend to be overwhelmed. So if you're interested in volunteering or maybe helping with us with online strategy of any kind, I'd love to hear from you. And one more plug is that we're having a Las Vegas raffle. So I'll leave these cards at the front if anybody wants a ticket, just $10. Possible.
So if you're interested in helping out on the nonprofit, see Wesley or Deb, and we'll get you signed up. They're just starting on the planning, and we can use all the great ideas people have on really helping them with social media outreach. Okay, on to what you came for the panel. Okay, go ahead, Oscar.
Hi, I'm Oscar Daval. I'm the VP for Social Media Club, and I just wanted to give a shout out to SpeedStream TV, who's doing our live stream. We're doing a beta test today, so if you guys, anybody who's watching out there, I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm a newbie to the product, so we'll see how it goes tonight. And SpeedStream TV. So basically, it's a broadcast truck in a backpack. So you can take the backpack and link up via satellite, 3G, 4G, anywhere in the world, and broadcast live. So if you guys have any questions, see me after class. And I'll let Kat take it away.
Great, and it's all in that little bitty backpack back there by Oscar, which is really cool because we've been live streaming the last couple of years, and this is a really great approach where we can really take it on the go. Okay, on to the panel. I'm going to introduce the moderator, and then I'll let him introduce the people on the panel. John McElhenney has been working for a number of Fortune 500 companies over the last 3 years. He helped develop Dell's global strategy, and I personally invited him to this panel because I've been following him on Pinterest, and he posts a lot of information on infographics. I read his blog. He's a really interesting person to follow and read, has a lot of interesting original ideas. So I would like to invite John up to kick off the panel. Thanks, John.
Oh, good, my phone's still here. I just left it up here. So thanks a lot. I'm excited to be here. I have some strong opinions about infographics that we'll get to in a little bit. But I'd like to introduce the panelists here. We have Robert Villalpando. All right, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
My name is Roberto Villalpando. I work at the Austin American-Statesman. I've worked there since 1998 in a variety of positions and in different parts of the paper. I started out designing the Sunday front page and as a copy editor. Worked as a wire editor there before I jumped back into working as a graphic artist for the newsroom graphics department. Before I was hired at Statesman, I worked in Rockford, Illinois, where I worked in the graphics department as well. But in the graphics department at the Statesman, I've been trying to slowly but surely drag the Statesman into producing more interactive graphics, more infographics that incorporate multimedia. And although the newspaper industry and our newspaper itself is in a bit of a period of transition, we're making progress always.
Cool. And next to him is Christine Fish.
Hi. I'm Christine Fish. I'm president and founder of Fishka Studios, LLC. It's a very small business, primarily me and my subcontractors. We provide creative technical communication services to the high-tech industry. That includes screencasts, online tutorials and demos, and most recently infographics and interactive ebooks. I've been a professional writer for most of my life. The last 15 years I've been in the high-tech industry, and as a technical communicator under that general umbrella title, I've occupied many roles, including technical writer, instructional designer, technical trainer, and e-learning courseware developer. That latter one and the instructional designer one, I've been involved in using graphics pretty heavily. Graphics, though, have always played a key role in technical communication for high-tech audiences. For anyone who's evaluated a enterprise-level software application or who has attached it to a device with multiple input and output networks on their input and output ports on their network on a device, you know how difficult it can be to accomplish those tasks without an infographic as a guide. Even though I'm a skilled writer, I've always been more comfortable with images than written word when it comes to communicating information about complex systems. I'm also an artist in 3 different mediums, fused glass, mixed media mosaics, and polymer clay. So I've been involved in design visually for a long time. But recently I've been refocusing my businesses on the things that rely more heavily on graphic design because that's what I enjoy. So life's too short to be writing manuals and you're not really enjoying that. So that's what I've been focusing on lately.
Cool. And Melissa Eek. Did I get it right?
You did get it right, yes.
Like a mouse.
Like a mouse, exactly. That's what my logo is, a mouse. I'm Melissa Eek. I am owner and designer of Eek Media. I've been around for about 13 years now, my company, not just me.
You've been around a little bit longer?
Slightly. I started off in print design, straight out of college, working at a Toros magazine, doing basic layout. And then when the web came around, I jumped right into that and started doing that company's website, and then transitioned into freelancing, and then doing straight up web design, no print. And then some clients started coming back around to that, and so as infographics got bigger, I kind of stepped back into that role, which I love doing graphic design, so I'm trying to kind of promote that a little bit more as one of my bigger services. So I don't like to read a lot of written words, so infographics work really well for me. I like the pretty pictures and the small bits of text, so it's something I've really enjoyed doing.
Nice. And from the University of Texas, we have Diego Martinez. How do you say your last name?
Martinez Moncada.
Okay.
So I'm Diego. I'm a senior here at UT, and I'm a government major. I work for a daily infographic, and we've been around for the past 2 years. And slowly we've become the biggest infographic database on the net. We're reaching about 200,000 unique visitors a month. And unlike everybody else, I don't have as much design experience, but I do know what makes a good infographic and what people like. And as the content director, I feel that I've done a pretty good job at Daily Infographic, getting us a nice fan base.
All right, that's a great lead-in. What do people like in infographics?
Short and simple. It can't be too short, and it can't be too long. One of the biggest problems I see with infographics these days is that they're becoming really spammy. A lot of big companies are coming in and just trying to make infographics to say that they made an infographic, and as a result, we have a wide range of infographics out there now. Some really bad and some really good. But today, it doesn't seem like the best infographics are as good as the ones that from the past, simply because companies are just doing that. One thing that they should be doing is actually doing the content that people like. Today we see a lot of social media infographics, an absurd amount actually. For the most part, they're the nicer looking ones, but the content itself isn't very exciting. What people want to see are things that we do in everyday life, like politics, health, life hacks, which is actually one of the more popular infographics on Daily Infographic. Just something that we can relate to more, as opposed to social media. We all know what it is. We've used it. It's a commodity now, and yeah.
Cool. Why don't we just come down? What's your sort of take on making a good infographic? What's the definition?
I think Diego hit on a lot of the points. I think too short doesn't really grab your attention, and too long you get bored halfway through, and so you don't read the points at the end. So I think having good data that people can relate to in some way, an interesting topic. I saw a couple come out on President's Day about presidents, which I was like, oh, it's President's Day, and so I found that interesting and timely. So I think timeliness is a good item to try and hit on. Also, personally, I'm big into the numbers, so I like to see percentages or things that go head to head. So you say, Facebook versus Twitter, just to use another social media example. So I like to see how things relate to each other. I think that makes something, strong and eye-catching.
Cool. What about you?
Short and sweet, definitely. There's no point in creating the equivalent of chart junk, and we all know what that means, or we should, from reading too many graphics that have been pie charts.
Is that using all the cool charts in Excel?
Yeah, all the
pictures?
the pie charts and the bar charts and
Bubble
all the things
charts
for
are my favorite.
that got to be so rampant quite a while ago. And the same goes for graphics. You can overdo it, folks. Graphics are a shorthand. They're a shorthand form of communication when they're used in infographics. But if you create an infographic that's crowded with them, you're not going to convey the information in a succinct way or in a meaningful way. The bigger question, though, on all of this, or the thing I'd really like to see is this content something that your customers want and need? Are you meeting their needs, or are you just trying to put an infographic out there because it's a cool thing to do? And I think I've seen a lot of that out there right now. So what are you trying to achieve? Why are you doing it? And is this the best way to present this information in terms of time, cost, resources, priorities, and appropriateness for the content? A lot of things lend themselves really well to an infographic. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to put it out there as an infographic. And more importantly, how will you measure the success of that communication effort? That's a big one to think about.
Roberto, what do you think? You come at it from a slightly different angle with the newspaper.
Well, I don't, because from the newspaper perspective, or from the journalism perspective, the same rules apply to the infographic as you would for any other work of journalism, which is you want something that's, as you said, timely, relevant, interesting, compelling, something that tells a story, something that people can use, something that, like I say, all the things that you would normally want out of a good bit of news, you want that out of an infographic as well. But I think everybody else hit on good points as well.
So I'm going to back up the order. I'm going to start with you again. What about the long infographic, like the long infographic? Why in the world has that come into being?
You're referring to the infographic?
The go, 650 pixels by 3,000 or 5,000 pixels. That you have to scroll for a few days. There's no way to print them out. There's no way to put them in a slide presentation. What's the point?
I think you've answered the question.
Well, they're being produced at a more rapid rate today than they were last week.
I'm not
producing them. As soon as I get the message.
The cool thing about trying to develop interactive graphics, using tools like JQuery in HTML5 and CSS3, is it opens up a whole new way of presenting all this information. So it's not all about the scroll down for miles and miles.
Sure.
You can turn it into the drill down.
Right.
I know a lot of people enjoy or still enjoy Flash-based infographics, and those are the kind of infographics I had started out doing when I went into the graphics department at the Statesman.
So interactive is an infographic as well, which is awesome.
Right, right, and giving your audience, because that's how you'd be treating them, giving your audience that option of drilling down, of picking and choosing what information they want to look into, rather than forcing this linear format of that giant, tall infographic.
I just have no idea where.
To me, it's preferable to have that option.
Where that thing came from, but they started showing up.
It came from being easy. It's the easy way.
Why is it easy? I don't get it.
It's easier than trying to come up with the architecture and the engineering.
I don't know, because they come up with some pretty amazing ways to tie those things together graphically. And as a, if you try to create one of those in Illustrator, you have to have a pretty powerful machine to even build one of those. So anyway, do you have any opinion on the size of the infographic?
I think it's important that if you're going to create something long and scrolling, I don't necessarily agree that it's always absolutely a bad thing. I think there can be a couple exceptions to that. I've seen a game board that goes down along the side of a page, and then there's text explanation along the way, and it was very engaging. I've also seen one that I can show later that I have in that list. It's how to prepare for a marathon. And it's a long scrolling graphic, but so is preparing for a marathon. If you've ever been an extreme athlete or participated in a marathon or anything like that, the way the graphic leads you down that process, by the time you're done and you see the people going like this, yay, I'm finished on the platform, you feel that way. And you can relate to that as an athlete. So I think that's one effective use of using a long scrolling graphic. But generally speaking, no, I don't think it's a good idea.
Whose infographic is this? Sorry.
It's one tab over.
One
The
tab
marathon
over.
one.
Oh, this is not one of our panelists?
Yes,
How do you
it
use
is,
this
but
thing?
that's later on.
The next tab has a marathon.
Oh, the marathon's actually on here. This one?
Yeah.
Oh, preparing for the marathon. All right. There it is. Yeah,
From daily.
it's cool. So we are in the Scroll-Villa. See the race. Okay. Any opinion on the long, short of it?
Yes, I've done both types. So I did an infographic for that was supposed to run in USA Today, so it was about this big.
Yep.
Maybe 250 pixels tall.
They're probably responsible for us doing infographics today.
Right, yes.
They
Because
did,
I think
they
they
did
were
the lion's share about 15 years ago.
Yes,
they started it.
exactly. And so then today I worked on one that was probably 5,000 pixels tall. So I've done both, and I kind of equate it to the long format as almost somebody who corners you at a party and can't stop talking. And so it's almost like they just don't know how to cull down the data to find the most important parts.
So the
and so they put
story is
everything in.
long.
The
It
story is
requires
long.
more.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those, like the one that I'm working on, my client sent me the data. Bless their heart, they just wanted to get all of that information in there, and so that's what you do. But what was funny was the USA Today infographic actually probably took me longer to do, to cram all that data into that little tiny space, and then break down the data and try and figure out the best way to get all that information into such a small format. I do like the small format. It's really easy to show on a screen. I'm not sure if it's up there or not. I don't see my icon. That's okay. But I like that. There it is in the, go back.
Oh, this was it?
The middle of the wedding with the rings, yes.
Okay.
So see how easy it is to show on the screen? It's a little tiny, but
nice.
you get the point. So I like that format. It did take me a lot longer to get all of that in there. But yeah, so my feeling is the ones that are super long, if they're interesting and relevant, I think that they're fine.
I mean, I'm assuming then the only real consumption of the long form infographic is the web, right? It's not a print medium. You're not going to try to print that thing out. I've tried to, I've literally had to screenshot 10 times and put them into PowerPoint to get them to print it out. It's ridiculous. You can't print them.
Yeah, and if you try to view it on one screen, it's like this wide. You can't read anything.
Pinterest loves them, right? Yes. Pinterest will zoom in on a little piece of them. What about you? What do you think about following the story for the long form, or have you had experience in both?
Personally, I'm not a big fan of a long infographic. I think the point of infographics is for them to be short and to get to the point. Kind of along the same lines with the horizontal infographics. I think the 640 width is the best way to go, and then the length, I would say that you shouldn't have to move your scroll wheel more than a couple times to get through the whole infographic. Otherwise, it seems more like a chore than a fun thing. In my opinion, infographics are fun things and something you can just kind of stumble upon and just read through it real quick.
So are you guys I know that in the news world, the infographic kind of is one of the very great selling points because it's a visual, it's more than just the words. You can actually engage the user. Or the rest of you, not to skip you, Roberto, but are y'all getting asked for infographics as sort of the newest thing? People don't want decks, they don't want presentations, they want a new infographic. And is it because they want to socialize them, because they're such a popular shared format?
I think my clients have decided that it's the newest trend, and so they're kind of trying to jump on that bandwagon a little bit. It works in some formats really well, but I think a lot of it is doing it to do it.
Okay. Do you have any thought on that?
My last client wanted an infographic because he actually had a data sheet full of data about baby boomers in retirement. And he actually surveyed folks in the population that read that sheet and said, what are the things that you think they're the most salient points here? What scares you half to death? And we took 4 different pieces of information out of the research that he had done, and that became the infographic. And it was around a life event, which lends itself very well to visual display of the information. So he was going for impact, not the chart junk.
Okay. Do you have any of you have your worst infographic that you've seen? Concepts or things that you remember like, holy cow, somebody turned this into an infographic?
Well, do you want me to show you an example?
Sure.
Shoot, where is it?
There's 360, is that
No, that's Flash.
you? Did you do that one?
I did do that one.
That's pretty nice. Here's the rock band.
Go 2 over to the left. I think that's the one. Okay, this one was an example of what I thought was awesome and horrible about long infographics. This thing goes on forever. You can scroll down and see that it goes on forever. But it's great because it is integrating a lot of HTML5 and CSS and using the new animation tools, browser-based animation tools. But what typifies this as terrible and awful about these long...
Is that they put Friendster in at all.
Well, it becomes chock full of charts and graphs that are meaningless because
hey, there you go.
Nothing has
the animated Twitter.
There's no scale on some of these charts and graphs. There's no there's no value. Yeah. So it's great.
Flash?
Not Flash. It's just HTML5. And so.
So this is the infographic gone wild, right?
Right. What I'm saying is it typifies everything that's great and everything that's awful.
Yeah.
For me, it's great because I love being able to see this kind of.
This looks like a bit of a problem here. The infographic didn't fit the characters, so we have a male and female who have no heads. That would be an infographic fail.
No, it's 22.9% of a male.
Well, then it's way off. That's well over half female. I can see that's the middle.
So there you go. See, that's what I'm saying.
It's a fail. That's an infographic fail.
But it's.
Thank you for that example.
But it's innovative, and I applaud.
That part's not innovative.
But I applaud the effort at trying to present the information in a new and.
I totally agree. I like things running. I don't know how they're keeping this number real, but we'll assume that they are. But yeah, I mean there is a place now. The bluebirds. That's gratuitous graphics that have nothing really to do to share information other than look cute. But infographics are definitely a way to marry the numbers and the words with images. And we know from brain science and brain learning that people, when they see a picture and a word and then associate a sound even, right? So if you can turn this into a presentation even better, they retain the information a lot more strongly when there's a visual. Any other have you had any clients give you an infographic that seemed like a disaster before you even started? Like, you want me to do an infographic on how many barrels of oil spilled from BP? Or, you had any, no? Well, let's talk about tools then. Where do you start when you're drawing an infographic? Do you start with pencil and paper? Do you go straight to Illustrator? What are y'all's? Robert, why don't we start with you? How do you begin when you come up with a need to do an infographic?
I guess the number one question is, what do you want to communicate? What do you want to communicate to your audience?
Let's say you know that. So here's my data set. Please do me an infographic. What do you start out with? How do you start brainstorming?
Again, it's going back to what do you want to communicate? What's the best way to communicate the point that you're trying to make? if you have a data set that shows a spike in whatever, what's the best way to express that spike? Is it going to be a trend line, a bar chart? Is it going to be some other means of expressing that? If you want to show, competing lines, competing fever lines where they might intersect, or, you know what I'm saying? It really all depends on what you want to communicate. What's the best method, best format to communicate?
Okay, so pick one. And do you start with pencil and paper, or do you start on the computer? That's kind of the question. Do you go old school and start drawing, where you can do 100 thumbnails in 5 minutes, or do you start on the computer?
Yeah, I do it on the computer. I do it on the computer. I know my colleagues are more old school and they do sketch it out first, but I do it on the computer just to get it done faster.
Cool. What about you?
I start with a design brief with a client.
Okay.
And ask the basic questions that any good graphic designer asks. They ask about your company, they ask about your clients' goals, and then we talk about, is this the best way to communicate this? Is an infographic right for you? And if we determine it is, then it's a lot more research after the client walks out the door, followed by a lot of idea generation, because the first idea is usually not the best idea. Contrary to popular belief, graphic designers do not spend most of their day drawing. They spend a lot more time in research and idea generation. And that's something really important to know when you walk in the door, when you hire a graphic designer, by the way. Come prepared. Go Google graphic.
Google it yourself.
Well, go Google the graphic design brief, that phrase, and see examples of what a good graphic designer is going to ask you, so that you go to the design meeting a little bit prepared to answer the questions, and understand that it's going to be a process. It's going to be something that takes a little time if you want the quality graphic.
What about you?
Generally, the client gives me, topics. So let's say that honeymoon graphic that you just showed. So I'll start with a brainstorming of keywords. So I'll say wedding, wedding dress, wedding ring, cake, honeymoon, kissing, love, and so I start getting words together like that help me kind of think about maybe what the concept would be. Then generally I would go to iStock Photo and punch in some of those words and visually see how I could represent that. I also have an infographic pin board on Pinterest, so I'll browse through and just kind of see how other people have represented certain types of data. So if I have, a this versus that kind of data, how do other people represent that? So I kind of start off seeing how other people have done it and then go from there. But I do immediately start in Illustrator.
And then you start with the words. So you like to cluster the words together and figure out what the buzz topics are about that.
So I did one recently that was using technology for education. And I was like, okay, what's my big concept going to be? And then I realized that a lot of the data points talked about the cloud, which I hate. But so I figured that I would just use some kind of cloud visual, which worked really well in separating the data. Yes. So that worked well in separating all of the data and pulling everything together.
And then you go straight to Illustrator when you start conceptualizing?
Yes.
Okay. How do you get going when you are you an infographic creator or a curator?
We don't create, but we've worked with people to get them created. And as far as our part goes, we need to know what the goal of the infographic is. Luckily for us, for the most part, we can just have fun infographics. Typically infographics that go viral. But as far as the business goes, they should know whether the goal of the infographic, whether it's just to get the name out there, whether it is to go viral, brand awareness, whatever their goal may be, they need to have that. They need to discuss that with the designer that way, because that's just gonna it's just gonna lead the way for the way that the infographic is designed.
So does the viral potential for an infographic affect y'all's use of it in your on your site?
Yes.
That's something you're trying to look for?
That's something we're trying to look for at doing infographics.
And do you have any sort of key points that help things along that path? I'd love for something to go viral, right?
Yeah. Really, having good data is really important. Data that you can put numbers to, not necessarily put pie charts and things like that, but there have been several infographics that we've done in which populations have been represented by just little people, and it just finding different ways to show data, just innovative ways to show data, it really seems to intrigue people, and those are the ones that tend to go more viral as opposed to the ones with just pie charts and bar charts and just the typical stuff that you see all the time.
Now my Pinterest board of infographics won't load for some reason. Oh, there they are. What about you? Do you have any sort of ideas of how to move the visual along with the data so that it might be more popular? Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Well, like Diego said, I think things with numbers that you can represent really helps when it's just a bunch of text. I think the whole point of infographics is so you don't have to do a lot of reading. So finding the best way to punctuate that data with graphics or call-outs is really what keeps me reading through, especially as they get longer. And also, as a designer, I tend to find myself trying to fill space with certain graphics. And I think what you have to be careful of is not making those graphics seem more important by giving them a bigger weight or a brighter color. So you kind of have to also think about how the data itself relates to the rest of the data in the infographic, and not just use something big and pretty to make it fill that space.
So are we running into a problem with the slew of infographics, with the cascade of infographics, that we're starting to get bored with the hyper image? Are we going to have a backlash? What's the solution? Where are we going? Any ideas? Simpler, easier.
Simpler, easier, yeah, to comprehend. Chunk it up. I mean, that's something that even in communicating in other forms, such as text, you chunk things up so that people can move from one concept to another easily.
What about interactive? That's got legs on it, obviously. So you can go deep, really deep on the data in a short space.
Yeah. The thing with good and bad infographic, with a glut of bad infographics out there, it's just because I feel like it's because the technology has democratized the whole process of being able to draw stuff on like that, digital drawings.
What does that mean? What does that mean, democratize? Somebody said that about Pinterest to me today. What does that mean, democratizing the infographic?
It's made it available for everyone to have a certain level of capability that we can all produce an infographic if we choose to.
This is my favorite infographic today. It's about how Pinterest is used.
I mean, we all have this. We all have a basic capability of producing infographics if we choose to, depending on what kind of software we're using. You can open up Excel and use one of the chart tools, and you create an infographic. You know, add a few words and export it. And by democratize, you've given everybody that sort of base level of capability. But you know, with great power comes great responsibility. And
can Excel produce a great infographic?
You can do more with something like that. I mean, it gives you a place to start. Okay? Yep. Gives you a place to start. I mean, you can go on different sites and see varying degrees of quality with the infographics, but a lot of times it'll come back to what we had talked about at the very beginning. Content will be king on these kinds of things. You could have a really crappily executed infographic, but I know I take it back. It wouldn't be crappy, because if the content was really good, it really wouldn't matter how badly drawn it was. If the content is really strong and compelling and useful, I think that saves it. And I say that as somebody who's made a lot of crappy infographics for the Statesman. But you know, we've all seen infographics that are very, very sophisticated looking, very gorgeous, but don't really say anything. Don't really have any information that's useful or helpful, or you know, like the one we just saw, where you've got the Tweety birds flying around and everything's moving and glittering, but it doesn't say anything. It doesn't get you anywhere.
What were the birds hovering around? Anybody remember? Well, what was it though? There was something. It was very specific. It was a number of tweets or a number of followers. Anyway, it was a little badge of. 13,000 Twitter.
I was too distracted by the birds, I don't remember.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely that was an interactive infographic fail.
But again, like I said, it all goes back to the content. The content will determine the strength.
Can you make a great infographic out of crappy content?
No.
No? You have? You have to. If your client comes to
yes.
you and they want you to do something about washers,
Right.
you're probably going to have to do it.
I don't know that the content was crappy. To me, it was just very dry. So
What'd you do?
made it pretty.
So can you kind of walk us through the example?
Same thing as what I said before. You try and find, something to grab the reader's attention. And I don't have this one posted. It's the one I did today. But just graphics that catch their eye so that you can somehow represent this really dry data in an interesting way. I don't know how to really say that.
Okay. What are some of the more innovative uses of infographics that you guys have seen? For example, one of the things that's caught my eye recently is college graduates doing their resumes as infographics. There's even a site, I think, that will generate your infographic from your basic social data. Is there some other uses of the infographic that you think are up and coming and may not be burned out yet?
Well, I'd like to see infographics more as a news source. It seems like infographics do take a while to come out, but they're never instant enough to cover a story on the day that story is taking place. Like President's Day, we do have things like that. But as far as keeping up with the presidential race right now, there really aren't that many infographics out there on that, and it's something that is relevant. It just changing.
So was President's Day a win then, though?
It is, but it's something you can plan for. I'm talking more like for example, the disaster we had in Japan. We were able to get infographics up, but it wasn't until a week or two afterwards. I think if we can find a way to make it more instantaneous and have more current events with infographics, it would keep that going.
So a Whitney Houston infographic would have been awesome?
Sure.
Sorry, that was bad. Sorry. Please forgive me. Whitney, forgive me. What?
Show, yeah. Just for records or number one hits. There's a lot of stuff that you pull out.
Yeah, they actually did do some great infographics on Whitney Houston. I was very being catty. But so any other sort of thoughts about where this genre might go, compelling, bringing images and numbers together to tell a story?
I haven't seen much going on with the interactive infographics like the one you just showed,
Okay.
and the ones you said that you're creating. But I think that as more and more people are creating these infographics that are the long format or the boring data, that it's going to go more towards the interactive because those are the ones that are going to stand out and catch your eye in this huge bin full of infographics. So that's where I think.
Is that what we're getting? We have an enormous. Are you creating a dustbin of infographics in your website? Daily infographic.
Yes, we do have. We have a ton of infographics, and I foresee, because we do have so many infographics now, and everybody is taking part in it. I foresee infographics dying off, actually, mainly because of the mobile phone. Most of you are here tweeting on your phones. I see a couple computers, but for the most part, people have their phones. And there's some Forrester research studies saying that more people will be accessing the internet from their phones as opposed to computers.
Man, the long scrolling infographic is going to be a biatch.
Exactly. I think, and because most mobile users are iOS and most interactive infographics are still Flash, I think that's going to help in the interactive dying off. I can see video lasting a little bit longer simply because you can access that from more areas. But overall, I think infographics will be taken over by something that's more native to the mobile phone.
How about video?
I think the video will die off as well because you can't really get a snapshot, which is more what an infographic is, more of a snapshot, more of an adult's picture book, I guess. And with the video, you actually have to sit down and take some time and watch that whole video because, I mean, they can range from 30 seconds to 2 minutes, whereas infographics, they're pretty instantaneous and you can just sit down, look at some pretty pictures, look at some words, and you've learned. So,
what's the second largest search engine on the web after Google? Anybody? YouTube. So video is, still an up-and-coming genre, and the infographic and video, I think, actually have a nice marriage in bringing visuals and voice together to help transcribe data even more quickly. So
I would like to get Diego's sense of things in terms of tablets. I mean, that's the other thing that's on the rise. Now, tablets, I'm looking at tablets actually as sort of the thing that might save infographics. Because I agree with you. For a while, I thought that if the end-all be-all was going to be the iPhone or smartphone with that size screen, then yeah, we're screwed. But with a tablet, we're coming back to this idea of a large screen, a large color screen, but we're also coming back to having it portable. Do you know, have you seen any other research that suggests that?
No, it was mainly those Forrester studies, and it's a viable argument with the tablet, but for the most part, it's still people that are going to have their phones on them. You don't see everybody carrying around tablets, except for things like this and South by and maybe school. But the average person will probably only have their mobile phone with them, as opposed to having the tablet and the computer.
Okay, now I'm depressed again.
Well, so the case then is for the short and sweet.
Yes.
Can fit it in one E-road screen on a phone.
Yeah, I think something that'll come about is like the cousin of the infographic, of whatever that may be.
The pretty cousin.
Yeah, but it'll be more native towards mobile phones as opposed to just being on the web. But I can see infographics staying around for like business deals, kind of like BlackBerry, that is just kind of in business, or Microsoft Exchange. Because in those instances, businesses are putting time into it, they're putting money into it, and so they're producing great products that can sell whatever they're trying to sell to fellow businessmen. But as far as being on the web and things like that, I think they'll slowly die off.
I mean, even with this laptop and this big a screen, this infographic is a bear, right? It's great information about Facebook and the changes on Facebook, but I have a hard time consuming even the good ones in that long format. It just, I'm coming from trying to present this information. You do it in PowerPoint, you do it in 20 slides or hopefully 10, all right? But trying to do it all in one long graphic is asking a lot of the user, right? So the user experience scrolling down something like this, I guarantee you about halfway through this, people are gone. There's no way they're getting to the bottom where the logo of this company is that is trying to promote this infographic. It's a hard sell.
I almost feel like maybe they should break it into multiple infographics and have it as
that's what I think too. Yeah, series.
Infographic of the week and have it continue tomorrow, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I might start saying that.
Okay, I think we're going to open it up to questions now. Do we have any Q&A from the audience? I think we're going to get a mic down here. Is that what I heard? Anybody? Someone's running up here. I don't know. Is it a question or a mic? Neither. All right. Well, oh, there it is. All right. So if you do have a question, please come down and share it into the mic so we can get it captured in all its glory onto the video, the streaming video. Check. There we go. Thanks. Okay.
Hi. Fast Company will publish infographics all the time, like what they consider some of the best infographics. And while I think they're beautiful, I'm surprised at how much concentration it takes to really understand the graphic. It's almost like to kind of pivot from you're focusing on length. These aren't particularly long; they're just very dense, right? And so I'm wondering if that's almost at odds with the purpose of a graphic, which is supposed to make the data easily accessible, and they're focusing on look how clever and deep. And I'm wondering, what's that all about?
Well, Wired maybe, right? Because Wired is doing things to push the envelope, but often the exploded graphic or the infographic that is really deep information can be layered in something that you can look at for a long period of time, especially in technology where you're trying to reveal levels and levels of information. Sometimes that dense infographic is really the way to go. Do y'all have some thoughts?
No, I just was going to iterate that I think that they will really waste their time by trying to put too much information in an infographic. Again, keep in mind that an infographic is shorthand. It's a visual shorthand to reduce complexity. So I'm not quite sure where they're going with that. I know that I just personally go right past those infographics. I don't even give them the time of day. They're almost insulting because they're really defeating the purpose of an infographic, which is to capture you at a moment to clearly communicate something just at a glance. And the ones that are packing it in just don't do that.
Yes. Okay, next question.
So one of the things I'm curious about is we're using the term infographic, but you know there are a lot of examples out here. The active animated infographics that give me more when I click on something that's almost an interface design on top of it in the database. And then we have things like narratives, you know, comics that were designed to be printed out. The Oatmeal is an example. He does some great stuff, but it needs to be long, and that's part of the humor and part of the draw through it. And then for the cell phones, it seems to me that infographics are the natural native next step, that they're just going to refine down more and more and more.
The interactive version?
Maybe interactive, maybe not. Maybe if I want to get my, you know, let's say I have 5 or 6 different stocks I track every day, if I can hit a button and have a, you know, a static on the screen. But there's also, you know, the division between print and digital, and it seems like a lot of these examples were going towards the more elaborate digital and away from print. And I'm just wondering if you would have different names for different categories. You know, for instance, what you were describing with the deep animated, that's almost an information. It's almost an animated set of information. I just would like to hear a little, if you have thoughts on the different types and where the divisions lie.
In the curation side of things, do you break them down in any way?
We don't
like
too
style?
much. We don't too much, but there are like information design, data visualization, and infographics. I guess are the main 3 that we do. And the data visualization, they seem to be more like, I guess, infographic long graphs, things like that, like almost trees. Like we did a Star Wars one not too long ago, showing all the different connections between the people involved. And I would say that's more along the lines of data visualization. Whereas I guess infographic provides you with the information, more numbers.
Actually,
so we definitely need a new nomenclature.
Let me jump in on that.
Yeah.
One of my pet peeves in the last couple of years is this whole buzzword data visualization. It's a chart, okay? Data visualization, they're charts, okay? Infographics, they can be charts, they can be maps.
So what's this? What's this back here?
That's a diagram.
Ah. No, so
What I'm saying is the formats have already been established, and all we're seeing is a transition from one platform to another. And what the question is how do we make that transition? If you do have a diagram, how do you make the transition to a digital platform? Do you make the diagram interactive, where you touch parts of the diagram and then you get the information, as opposed to having it all static and presented to you? The beauty of digital technology is that you have that capability now, where we didn't have that before. But we're all talking about things that have existed for decades, and this is nothing that's really new. It's just the platform. It's just the way it's being served to you. It's still the same food. It's just on a different plate.
Well, somehow McDonald's the infographic has become the McDonald's of the digital age, right? We're all going to be force-fed these long French fries.
I don't know where you're going with
data.
that.
Well, it's the popularization of the infographic is why we're standing here, right? It wasn't 2 years ago our clients weren't coming out of the woodwork asking for infographics. They were asking for something else. Maybe they were asking for data visualization. I don't know. But the reason I brought these guys up is this is a company that DACA's group here in town bought, but they're called X-Plane, and one of their big things is layered frameworks of data, which I would call an infographic, that explain very deep and dense information with the words and the visual. So just another, but I like the nomenclature of the, you know, we're trying to come up with some words. So there's a chart, data visualization, infographic, and something else, diagram.
Let me throw out a thought and just get the panelists' reactions to it. I generally agree with the position that y'all seem to have taken regarding the long infographic. I think the one with all of the Facebook and tweet and all the social media stuff was just a case of trying to convey way too much information. I think that a long infographic can be effective in cases where the length of the infographic is, if not central to the message, at least a big part of it. One of the best that I've seen was there was a group that went through the appeals process of a union contract to show exactly what it would take to get a teacher fired for cause in a large school district. And the thing was one of these 3,000 pixel things where you've got lines off to the side and little curly things up to the top, kind of like the corollary to the old copywriting rule. It's okay to break a grammar rule as long as you know the rule that you're breaking and why you're breaking it.
Well, I would say it just depends on your audience. You need to know who's going to be viewing your infographic. Like, for example, us, we just decide that people want to zoom quickly through each infographic and just go on to the next one. But if you are doing something like that, where you're presenting something, the long infographic is okay. Kind of just like a long PowerPoint or something in a lecture. In that case, a long infographic would be okay.
I made that point earlier too with the preparing for a marathon graphic. Again, it does depend on what you want to convey. Part of conveying information in infographic, and we haven't touched upon this yet, but conveying an emotional feeling or evoking an emotional feeling is something very important. If you want the reader to feel exhausted at the end, and that's part of your point, then yeah, a good long infographic is a good
Wear
way to
them
do
out
it.
with your long infographic?
Yeah, wear them out with a long infographic if the
That's the
information
first.
lends itself to that. If exactly the point you made. With
So
the
form
process.
follows function then. If we've got a long story to tell, a longer infographic may work, but it may work to break it into a series. And if we can layer it with interactive, maybe even better, right? All right, Joey, you take a picture before you ask the question?
I just really want to come and say hi to the panel.
Oh, okay, awesome. Did you get my picture?
I'll get yours at the end.
Okay.
I promise.
Tweet it.
I heard a lot of talk tonight about what is an infographic. What is a diagram versus a long or a short, or is it by the way, I love the USA Today. And I mean, I can remember way back to when I wore diapers, going to the USA Today and flipping it over, look on the bottom, so I could see the infographic. I think a lot of it is a perspective, and I almost see the new Facebook timeline as an infographic.
Yeah,
it tells you what music I'm listening to recently. It tells you where I've been. It tells you what I'm looking at, because the pictures I'm posting, the thoughts I have, the things I'm saying, are really kind of an infographic about me, about everybody in this room. And what interests me is you had mentioned Visualize Me earlier, which is a tool, an automatic tool that takes your LinkedIn information and converts it into a graphic.
Yeah, visualize.me, right?
Visualize.me.
Yep.
And the question for the panel is, have you guys seen or heard of any type of companies out there that are developing these tools that sort of take your job? And I can go ahead and plug into a line item the information that needs to go in, and it just auto-propagates this beautiful graphic that I can then take.
Well, yeah, so beautiful graphic and infographic are two different things, right? So Excel can produce beautiful charts.
Well, but
it's not going to turn
Visualize.me,
into
if
bugs.
you play with Visualize.me, it creates a beautiful graphic
Yeah.
that has valuable data. I can print it off, I can email it, I can send the link somewhere via Twitter to a prospective employer. I just want to know if you guys have heard of anything on the horizon of companies that are developing automatic tools where I can just fill in the data.
So there's actually there's a WordPress plugin that's from WordPress called Jetpack. And Jetpack has the stats package. And at the end of the year, when I went to my stats page, there was a little link that says, hey, we've celebrated your stats in an infographic. When you open it up, they've literally used the data of my WordPress information and put it into these chunks of infographics. Really cool. And it didn't cost me anything. So there's a lot of WordPress stuff happening. What about you guys?
If you go to Wordle, and I know Wordle's not new, but if we did this last Friday in All Content Matters, take your information off of LinkedIn and put it into Wordle, and it'll show you what the keywords are. So if your keywords aren't what you think your keyword should be.
That's a good one.
That's a really good, effective use.
That's a great use. Yeah, Wordle is powerful. You can give it a link to any web page, and it will distill it down into a word cloud, right? Building the larger ones for the more frequently used words, and it's pretty powerful. You can see what like TweetDeck will build a word cloud of your tweets, right? So it'll tell you exactly the topics that you're tweeting about. Also, another tool just to help get a handle on the information.
And just to speak to that as well, when you say any tools that might eventually take your job.
Well, you guys can team up with them. I'm not saying.
Well, and like you pointed on as well, just a pretty infographic doesn't necessarily mean that it's a beautiful design. I do mostly web design, and there have been things that have been coming out ever since I started that will do a website for you, and it's supposed to be so super easy, but I have been doing this for 13 years, and I think that being able to talk to a client and take that work off their plate and give them something that they've, entrusted you to do and create, I think as long as you do a good job at that, it's not going to replace me.
Technology and art, right, there's a little bit of a difference.
Right, yeah.
We had a camera forever, but how many of us do our headshot?
Right.
Yes.
Good point.
Yes.
Yeah, do you shoot your own headshot?
Let's be clear. You can produce baseline quality graphics, okay, with Excel or whatever you want to use. Yes, it's going to take that little extra effort to make it good, though. I mean, I don't want anybody to get me wrong and think that just because you can make a graphic that's it. That's the end of the line. With practice, you learn to enhance the information with more aesthetic qualities to it, right? I mean, we all have some of us have some art background, so we've tried to enhance our work with more artistic flair. But the point being is that all I'm talking about in terms of saying that anybody can do it, it's the idea that everybody can start the same baseline, but it does take a little extra effort. And you can tell just by looking at some of the examples what graphics had that little extra effort and which ones didn't.
All right, let's do a quick informal survey. Who likes the Facebook timeline? It's about half. Okay. Interesting. But I think that's a great example of how Facebook has started to move us into almost the long form, right? It's an infinitely scrolling page. I could never get, I'm trying to get to the bottom where the link to advertising is, and it keeps going away. I can't ever get there.
But you're chasing it, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's compelling information.
Yeah,
the thing is, with a lot of these long form
charts, true, no doubt.
That's just not as compelling.
Right. All right, Mark?
Yeah, my name's Mark Miller. I am Christine's client.
Awesome. For an infographic.
Yeah.
No,
yes. Well, I deal with baby boomers, and what I did was I hired an intern last year from St. Ed's to just dig up data, and we eventually netted it down to 24 facts. And the goal is eventually to have 3 to 4 infographics. Now, my question comes to is I wanted something that would eventually be able to print. Because I wanted to be able to walk into a room and hand 1/3 to one to one side of the room, one to the other, and one to the middle, because the numbers are so frickin' ugly. When I start looking at infographics, I don't see anybody really concerned that you could print these things.
I did do, one of my last infographics was for a PDF to be handed out at a trade show. And so we started off knowing that it needed to be 8.5 by 11 so that it could be printed and handed out. And they did cull the data, thankfully, and it fit, but most of the ones I get, no, they don't want it for print, they don't care.
PowerPoint,
Like, whatever size you want.
PowerPoint itself is an incredibly democratizing tool. Right?
Yeah.
You only got this big a screen, and you got to get it all in there on single slide.
Right.
So,
well, with my demographic, they want it on paper.
Yeah.
But that brings up an important point of,
where do you consume it?
Asking your client about that at the beginning and communicating that as a client when you walk in.
Oh, and let me add one other thing. I'm a very creative guy. I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I could not do what Christine does.
Can you create a pretty chart in Excel?
Yes.
Yeah,
but we
use that theme library. Right?
I'm a recovering engineer.
I'll get over it.
Foot too tall here.
It's mobile. It comes out.
And by the way, the free Photoshop and Illustrator brushes will let a non-artist do quite a bit if you can lay things out so they look good. I guess my question's half question and half opinion. I've been in e-commerce marketing now for 13, 14 years. And the one thing I learned, well, initially I thought it was just me on the single sites, but I now know it's true for products too. People don't read. And to me, the infographic is awesome because, I mean, especially when you consider Twitter is telling us that you get to hear the world in 140 characters. Oh my goodness, that's that silly dog.
Sorry, that's an accidental click. Sorry.
It's a dog, everybody.
That's viral. It's viral. That's the thing about Pinterest is if something gets pinned, it's going to trend, 5 or 6 times before it goes away.
You're missing the video of the father who shot his daughter's laptop.
No, I'm particularly not pinning that one.
Anyway, as I said, attention spans are short. We're getting information overload. I mean, I'm on the internet probably 16 hours a day, which my backside's beginning to reflect. And, so when I see these super complicated, whether it's short and dense or it's 4 feet long, unless it's going to really engage me, I'm lost. It seems to defeat the whole purpose of the infographic, which is really to just kind of make a point. What are your thoughts on that?
I think if you go and you take it back to when email marketing became really popular, and they said the best way to get somebody to open one of your emails is to have in the headlines, top 5 ways to blah, blah, blah. And then you go in and you have 5 data points and there's a big headline and a little bit of text. I think that maybe infographics will start going back that direction because, like you said, people are starting to get a third of the way through one of those long form ones and stop reading. So maybe it just needs to go back to that.
Well, because like even with PowerPoint, I was always taught, no more than 6 lines and 6 words. And if you look at Jobs, who's was considered to be the supreme PowerPoint presenter, some of his slides have 1 word on them, and yet he was able to get the point across. So, yeah. But yeah.
It's harder to present compelling data simply than it is to just present it. And putting it in pretty pictures and pretty words is not necessarily simplifying or making the information more digestible. If an infographic is really successful, it's doing a little bit of the heavy lifting for the data as well. So when you come up with that question in your mind again about Facebook versus LinkedIn or something like that, maybe the visual will help you remember, the weighting, the way the data was represented. Yeah. If it's successful, the image and what we're hearing tonight is the form, be it long or short, has to be really supported by the story you're trying to tell. I just am not a big fan of the long form story on infographics. I just assume they break it into slides so I can print it out in PowerPoint and share with my colleagues.
Thank you.
Yep, some closing remarks.
Well, just looking at Twitter, I apologize for using the word democratizing. I will not use it again. Sorry.
Because there are some GOP supporters in the room. Is that what happened?
I'm sorry. It was the only word that popped in my head. I'll try a different word next time.
I actually heard it today in reference to Pinterest. The democratization of the pen. Right? I guess it just means a vote. It's voted up or voted down is the way I read it. Well, any other closing thoughts? Thank you so much, panel, for participating tonight. It was great. Kat, thank you for bringing us.
Share closing thoughts.
Have it.
I had a closing thought about the emotional impact of infographics because we haven't touched upon this much. I alluded to it earlier. One of the things, and maybe it's an unintended consequence, maybe the graphic designer who designed this particular infographic didn't realize that there were some generational impacts, but I want to go look at the example that I mailed to Andy that's how to forecast the weather without gadgets. Hold that one up for me here.
Where is it?
It's,
is it on one of these tabs?
yeah, it should be on one of those tabs.
That's the awesome
Or
What?
go to the after right next to the Chrome icon at the bottom.
Yep.
Forecast weather?
Oh, here, right.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
How to
So which one?
forecast weather one? Forecast weather?
It's kind of long. It's not really long. But when I looked at this, I immediately loved it. Because at a glance, well, for one thing, all of the information that's up there, my grandparents taught me. They were farmers. And they imparted to me a lot of values about our relationship with land and animals and our stewardship and our responsibility to the planet. So when I saw that, all I had to do was read the title and look at the image. And part of my life flashed before my eyes, my life story. So be aware that you can do that in an infographic. It may not be what you intended. I may not be the intended audience for that. But be aware that infographics can be that powerful. So be careful how you choose your imagery.
I think this is a beautiful image, but if there's data in it, I can't see it from this view, right? It's very, it's a text-driven.
Yeah, it's very text-driven. But in an instant, I knew.
Yeah, it had an emotional appeal to you.
Yeah, it had an emotional appeal, and when I zoomed in and started reading, I was like, oh, this is everything they taught me growing up.
Nice.
We also had some advanced questions about conceptual information. Is an infographic good? Well, I have to admit that, yes, sometimes infographics can be effective on conceptual information. Can you pull up the one with the semicolon from the oatmeal? Now this one's long too, but yeah, this is how to use a semicolon, the most feared punctuation on Earth. And the author actually has a chart pack of 5 different grammar rules of different things, and the semicolon one is hysterical.
Yeah, and here's the problem with it being an infographic. This is all we have. There's no scroll.
Oh, no,
If I go to the website, but I'm just saying the capture is just
yeah. If you
the
go to the
screen.
website, though, it does scroll, and you do see it, and it is funny. But again, this is one thing that I didn't necessarily remember the information that was presented in it. I remembered it was funny. I had learned this grammar rule a long time ago, and I have to use it as a writer, or this punctuation rule. But I remembered that it entertained me, so I filed this under the category of entertainment. That may not be your intended effect. Okay? The same goes with the infographic for Schrodinger's cat. You can haul that one up. That one's pretty funny, too.
Yeah, we're going to eat grandma, and we're going to eat, comma. Grandma was the one that I saw. A lot. Which one is it?
It's one for Schrodinger's cat.
This is another oatmeal? No?
Yeah, no, that is one of them. That wasn't the one I was intended to haul up. Can you go to the one that's... There should be another one up there.
Another Schrodinger's cat?
Yeah, there should be that. That's a zombie cat. The cat's neither alive nor dead. It's both. So.
I'm not seeing another Schrodinger. That doesn't look like an infographic from here.
Again, that one I just wanted to show you. It was 2 states of the cat alive and the cat dead, and it was using the lolcat shorthand texting where I'm in your box, now I'm dead, in the equation below, and it was color coded and it was quite funny. But again, I remember that because it's humorous. So be careful how you use humor with infographics, because you may get the person remembering the humor but not the information. That's all I have in closing comments.
Cool. Thank you.